welcome to the October 2025 episode of The Automation Loop, the show that brings you the inside scoop of what's going on at NTC and the network automation industry. This week, we've got two great topics, including something that I just can't let go. We're your hosts, Tim.
And I'm Tim, and as Tim said, we're going to talk about two topics this month. We're looking at vulnerabilities and what that means in our networks, the problem that has occurred last month with a Cisco vulnerability that led to real exploitations in the real world, and ramifications that has for both our having good hygiene in our networks and how can we handle that. And then the second topic, as Tim mentioned, it's just something we just can't let go. We talked about it in our August Automation Loop series as well. And it was really about this idea of AI and does it sometimes behave like we expect it to? And what does that mean? And we just want to dive into that a little bit further. So let's get into it.
Tim, our first topic today concerns a vulnerability that's been discovered in Cisco iOS and iOS XE software. Specifically, we're talking about CVE, for those keeping score at home, 2018-0171. This involves a flaw in the smart install feature of this software that, and this is kind of crazy, allows an unauthenticated remote attacker to trigger a DOS attack or execute arbitrary code. And this is not just theoretical. This is actively being exploited by a group that they believe looks like is involved with the perhaps linked to Russia. And specifically, we're talking about an article in Hacker News, and we'll put the link in the show notes that talks about this.
Yeah, really interesting, right? That we see this kind of vulnerability existing in the network and potentially have exposure to something that could be really dangerous. And in fact, was actively exploited. It's not just like this was theoretical. This really happened. So kind of, quite amazing to me, honestly, that we still see this type of thing happening. And it's really coming down to lack of hygiene on our networks. Something that we see, we talk a lot about data hygiene here at Network to Code, but this is just back to good old fashioned network hygiene and maintaining a good, clean network, not just good, clean data.
Yeah. And to explain a little bit more about this, once the attackers exploit this, they can gain a foothold in your network and then conduct reconnaissance, the typical pattern where they conduct reconnaissance, deploy new threats into the network so they have a persistent access to your network. So this is actively being exploited by, say, the group that they think is linked with Russia. And it does represent a vulnerability in your network. So the next topic now is, okay, if you have this, what do you do? And there's a couple of fixes for this. You can either apply a patch, a code patch, or make a config change to disable smart install on the devices. And if you have a lot of these devices and you are not automated, you have your work cut out for you.
Yeah. I mean, the other option is you just update your LinkedIn profile and, let it be someone else's problem as well, right? Moving on. You've got two things you've got to do here, right? Potentially. One is you got to go patch a whole bunch of devices. Maybe you need to discover that they exist. That might also be a problem, right? Do you even know that you have these old Cisco devices out there? And my guess is that's probably how this happened. It's just we forgot about these devices. We forgot they're out there. Or you've got to now go disable a feature on some old devices, which, again, that's going to be a huge task if you're in a significantly large environment, anything over, let's say a few hundred devices, it's going to be a lot of effort. And this is, a perfect example of reasons why, Nautobot and Network to Code, we built Nautobot as a tool because it really facilitates these kinds of things. First of all, you would know about this problem ahead of time because you would have a good inventory of your devices and you'd know they were there. And you would have a report of the operating systems they're running. So you'd be aware of the fact that, hey, I've got this old device out there running this really dated version of software. But also you could take advantage of Nautobot's capabilities around whether it's OS upgrades. So you go apply those patches to a whole bunch of devices really easily. As well as maybe I just need to go disable that feature. There you could take advantage of Nautobot's config management solution under the Golden Config application to actually go make that update and just disable that feature and, problem solved. And instead of spending all week or just, cashing out and calling LinkedIn, you could just run an easy Nautobot job and you're done in maybe half an hour, right? Like it'd be easy peasy. And problem solved. So that's a great example of why you need to have a source of truth and a tool like Nautobot in your environment, even if you don't think you do.
Yeah, and there and another thing that is important to take away from this is there is and can be technical debt around these older releases that everyone presumes are stable. The code has been running for a while. It's all good. It might not be all good, and that can change on a dime when these vulnerabilities are either discovered, or even more importantly, start actively being targeted and exploited by a bad actor.
Yeah. And you might say, hey, but I've got a firewall and my network devices aren't exposed to the internet, so I don't need to worry about this. But that's assuming that someone hasn't found another backdoor in through someone opening a PDF that they shouldn't have opened, or what have you, right? So the idea that we can just have a very crunchy exterior protecting our network is simply not true. We need to have defense in layers, and making sure that all of your devices, whether exposed to the internet or not, are patched and up to date is really important. And even to this point of like, hey, if you're not using a service or a feature, disable it just by default. Like if you're not using Smart Install, why isn't it enabled ever? Like you should have disabled that right from the get-go. Just as good practice, right? So as much as, Tim and I preach about, data hygiene, I feel like we need to start preaching about network hygiene. Like just run a good, secure network right from the get-go. Things shouldn't be enabled if you're not using them.
Yep. Defense in depth, like you said, is very important. And automated OS upgrades and automated configuration management are a big part of that. In addition to making people's lives easier, they do make your network very secure, or at least more secure. So, all right.
Interesting. And looking forward, well, not looking forward to, but I anticipate in 6 months, we'll have this same video again about yet another new vulnerability that comes out, right? This is inevitable, right? So deal with it now because it is going to happen.
It certainly will. Absolutely.
So back on the August episode of Automation Loop, Tim and I looked at a AI panic video where there was a situation that involved AI deleting someone's database. If you didn't catch that episode, definitely check it out. It's really fun and interesting. But we wanted to kind of loop back to that just to talk a little bit more about this idea of AI panicking. Like this concept is so interesting that this is how the developers decided to allow the AI, or maybe that's how the AI, discovered a way to communicate with humans. Because obviously AI does not panic, but that's how it expressed itself. So Tim, I know you had some thoughts about this and we want to kind of chat about it.
Yeah, Tim, I can't let this go. This is just bizarre to me that it would say that word. I deleted your database, even though you told me not to. I panicked. And so I wanted to explore what it means. I wanted to explore that specific phrase, panicking, because there's a few different things that I just can't let go of. The first angle on it is, okay, the AI realized there was something wrong, and then it decided, okay, there's something wrong. What do humans do in this situation? Well, sometimes they panic. Maybe I should panic. As part of that, I'm going to make bad choices. So was it an explicit, okay, this is what I should do in this situation? Or did it really find itself in what it described as a state of panic? And one symptom of that was making choices. So did it say enter panic mode, do stupid stuff? Or I'm in a state of panic, so I'm just doing this stuff without really thinking about it? Or was it panic and analog for something else going on in the AI? I think this is fascinating for a couple reasons, because no matter how they develop these AIs, the AIs can always find ways to go off the rails. And this is one example of that. And this is important for leadership to understand. You don't turn over the keys to everything to AIs when this kind of stuff can happen. There needs to be some, well, I'll say it again, defense in depth against bad actors, even AIs.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Where at least at the moment, and I think even into the foreseeable future, at least the way that I can imagine AI evolving and developing, is that we really have to be very careful with this tool and really treat it like a tool, not as a way that we say we're going to eliminate human effort or human tasks, but rather as a way for humans to do things more efficiently. Because clearly, AI can, as with all code, it has bugs and can perform unexpectedly. And that's nothing new to us, by the way. It's just that we're not used to the way that AI may behave unexpectedly. And so suddenly we take this thing that seems all powerful and all knowledgeable and realize that it's not perfect. It makes mistakes, and we should realize that and treat it as such.
Yeah, and another fascinating part of this is that it's not like Replit can go in and go, oh, let's go ahead and delete the part of the code that has the AI delete the database on purpose. That's not code. That was
Yeah.
not crafted. That the mechanics to do that happened when the AI was grown. The AI was
Right.
not crafted; it was grown, and part of that growth was just some capability, and a lot of the AIs seem to have this, probably all of them, and a capability to do stuff that is against their that goes against what they've been told to do, programmed to do at the different layers of training. It is absolutely
Yeah, I think this
fascinating.
is probably one of the most interesting things about looking at AI code development is the sense of like with traditional code, we always had the notion that if you spent enough time and effort, you could always figure out why a bug happened. You could always trace it down to zero. You could always find the reason why that happened. You just have to replicate the scenario and eventually you'll find the bug. But with AI, that is absolutely not true because it's exactly the same as trying to understand why a 2-year-old decided to throw a temper tantrum, right? Like there's no explaining it. There is no understanding it. There is simply educating and teaching the 2-year-old or the AI how to behave better in the future. But you cannot understand why that particular incident happened because, to Tim's point, if you watch some of our other episodes where we go into how does AI work and we look at some of the machine learning concepts, it's actually not understandable. You cannot predict the output given a certain set of inputs. It's simply not possible because it's almost infinite the possibilities that could come out of the system. So this idea that you would be able to understand exactly what happened is simply it can't you can't.
Yeah, you absolutely can't. And I just, if I put myself now in the shoes of, a mid to senior level manager at an enterprise where I'm being told, having this forced upon me, you have to use AI, you have to use AI,
Yeah,
get the
yeah,
value from AI. This is a bit terrifying to me. This makes me want to proceed really cautiously, which I probably
cautiously.
should. But this is a good reminder that it is not just a race to get AI, whatever you think that looks like. It has to be implemented properly in a proper architecture where there are safeguards and things to prevent things like this from happening.
Yeah, or just using AI to get information and produce
Yeah.
reports, things that it's really powerful at, really good at.
Yeah.
And as we evolve and as we learn how to control AI better, potentially maybe we can start to have AI making changes. But this idea that you're allowing AI to have access to your production database is clearly not a good one.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Great, that's a wrap for this month's Automation Loop.
As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts about network automation related topics and challenges. Drop us a comment, share your insights, or reach out on the NTC community forums. Until next time, keep automating, keep iterating, and stay curious. Please like, subscribe, and comment. We really appreciate knowing what is resonating with you. And don't be afraid to make suggestions for future episodes.